Injuries, prospect promotions, and everything in between. Welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Monday, June 5th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White. Today on the show, Chris Sale and a few other pitchers are headed to the IL. Andrew Abbott is being promoted by the Cincinnati Reds. All the waiver wire moves and much more. Before we get started, please like this video and subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. And if you're listening on the audio side, download, follow, and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. We really do appreciate it. Scott, the big reveal. How is the voice?
Sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty good. I got to watch it a little bit. If I hit certain notes in one direction or the other, it'll crack on me. Doesn't feel good to yell upstairs after my kids still. I'll tell you that much. Had that tested a few times today, but I think it's better. I think it'll be tolerable to listen to me at least.
I noticed, Scott, that you regained your voice, but now you've lost your sight.
Yes, I do have the glasses back on. Yes, my eyes. I don't know what's going on with them. Something's a little funny there, though. So I'm just being a little cautious.
All right, fair enough. Happy to have you back. Happy to have that voice back as well. Let's get into it.
You can put it on the board.
Yes. Scott, why don't you get us started? Oh, my goodness gracious, from the weekend.
All right. Well, this guy didn't really make me say, oh, my goodness gracious, but I wanted to talk about him and you didn't have him on the rundown. So we're going to kick off the weekend review with Michael Soroka, or Mike Soroka, as he's still called on CBSSports.com. And wasn't pretty at Arizona. Mike Soroka allowed 5 earned runs in 3 2/3 innings, 7 hits allowed, 4 walks, 2 strikeouts, 2 home runs allowed, 2 whiffs, 2 swinging strikes on 80 pitches. And this was something I noticed even on his minor league rehab assignment. And it was really more than a rehab assignment. He was just he was in the minor leagues all season until recently. And even in the final start he made at AAA, the whiffs just weren't near the level they were at when we last saw him in the majors. Not that he was a big strikeout pitcher, but he still got swinging strikes at better than 11% rate, which is pretty good. But he's not missing any bats right now. And it was a game I happened to watch. So they offered a lot of analysis on the Braves broadcast. And so I'm just going to kind of forward it to you here. So like it's pretty obvious that his pitches are like, he's different. Okay. He's different. We haven't seen him pitch in the majors in 3 years. His stuff doesn't look the same. It doesn't work the same. He has a different build physically himself. He's a much bigger guy now than when we last saw him. His stride, they were saying, is longer. So he's working on using his fastball more up in the zone. He thinks it should play up in the zone now better than it did. And this is a guy, I mean, he was known as a sinker baller, extreme ground ball pitcher. That was his strength. And so he's just kind of having to learn to pitch all over again. And so I think between the numbers we've seen from Mike Soroka in the minors and now what we've seen from him in the majors, knowing, like, we should feel pretty comfortable concluding that we have no idea who this guy is anymore. And maybe he'll get back to being Mike Soroka. Maybe he'll become something different who is still good, but we haven't seen any evidence of either of those yet. So I don't know that it's worth investing a roster spot in him. He's 63% rostered in CBS leagues, which isn't crazy high, but it's pretty high. I think it deserves to go down from there. I don't have Mike Soroka rostered in any leagues myself. And I think we're just kind of chasing something that we have no reason to believe is there. Again, 3 years is a long time.
Yeah.
And 4 years, because he barely, 3 years ago was the 2020 season where he made 3 starts or something. So it was really 4 years ago that he got extensive work as a rookie. Yeah. I'm not giving up on Soroka forever, but it doesn't look like it's there right now.
And it makes total sense too, right? Like we haven't seen him, as you mentioned, extensively for 4 years. He had 2 Achilles surgeries during that time. This is Mike Soroka we're talking about. He's 63% rostered, as you mentioned. I guess the one thing I would point out is if you have him on your team and you're just kind of desperate for a pitcher this week, he's going up against Washington, so it's a pretty good matchup. But we'll get into all the prospect promotions and waiver wire pitchers in a little bit. And when we do,
I mean, his first start back was Oakland, so
yeah, and it wasn't great either. Well,
yeah,
I think he gave up, what was it, a 3-run homer to like Ryan Noda, but it was not like, it wasn't loud contact. I think it was like 350 feet down the line. So I don't know. Look, the point is Soroka hasn't been great through his first 2 starts. So I think you're right, Scott. We probably could drop him. We'll get into a few names to add in just a little bit. I did want to point out that AJ Smith-Shawver made his Braves debut on Sunday as well. And he's kind of waiting in the wings there in case Soroka or anybody else in that rotation falters. He threw 2 1/3 no-hit innings, 3 strikeouts, 3 swinging strikes on 39 pitches, averaged 94.7 miles per hour on the fastball, and pretty much as advertised. He looked really good in his multi-inning relief appearance. Again, that is AJ Smith-Shawver. Oh my goodness gracious, for me from the weekend, Triston McKenzie, who made his return to the mound, his first start of this season. We know he's coming back from a shoulder injury, and he was tremendous. At the Twins, 5 shutout innings, 1 hit, 1 walk, 10 strikeouts, 15 swinging strikes on 79 pitches, 7 of those on the fastball, 6 on the slider, 2 on the curve. Fastball velocity was actually up slightly from last year, 0.5 mile per hour. Basically the same pitch mix, Scott. It's an opportunity to, shine a light on somebody who was an amazing pitcher last year. I think with a start like this, he probably will move back up the rankings even more, probably push closer to that top 30 starting pitcher threshold for me, at least. What'd you think of Triston McKenzie in his first start back? Do you throw him out there this week up against the Houston Astros?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, the Astros haven't been an offensive juggernaut this season. Obviously, we considered Triston McKenzie a must-start pitcher for most of last year, and you couldn't have asked for a better return than this from him. The only thing, like in the, what we normally break down with pitchers, the only thing that seemed kind of off from Triston McKenzie in this one was his slider was down 1.7 miles per hour. Velocity was by and large fine, but very different on that one pitch in particular. He got 6 whiffs on the 14 of them that he threw, so it still seemed to be an effective pitch, and it maybe have more of a sweeper motion now, and it just got classified as a slider in this first start back, because that tends to happen. StatCast confuses the slider and the sweeper. We all confuse the slider and the sweeper because sweeper is just something that StatCast began to classify independently as a slider this year. So it was an effective slider, even though the velocity was a bit different from last year for McKenzie. He looked great, and I would trust him moving forward.
Scott, do you ever hear any of the older broadcasters talking about, oh, is that a sweeper or a slider? And they think they're so funny about it. It's like, why is it? It's not really a big deal, man. Like, I don't know.
Well,
it just annoys me when, I don't know, older broadcasters, I guess, try and make these witty jokes, and I don't find them very funny, but whatever.
I guess the annoying aspect of it, it's the same joke, and get a new joke.
Yeah.
I kind of I'm kind of annoyed at the distinction too, if I'm being perfectly honest. Why do we have to come up with a new name for this pitch? That's
fair.
It's okay, so it moves more horizontally than vertically, and it's slower. I mean, not every slider has the exact same movement or velocity. It's okay. I don't know. I get what they're saying, but I also get it's sort of like on Twitter, everybody makes the same joke when something happens, and it's I could make that. Sometimes when I want to make a joke, I search to see if somebody's already made that joke. If 5 people have made that joke, it's all right, I'm not going to make that joke. But if it's truly novel, then I'll go for it.
Scott, I'm here to tell you, you're putting way too much work into your tweets. First thing that comes to my mind, I just tweet it out. I don't care if anyone else has tweeted it, whatever it might be. A few other shout outs for, oh my goodness gracious. Mookie Betts had an insane game on Friday night. Just worth mentioning how truly great this game was. 4 for 4 with a double dong and a stolen base. now up to 15 homers, 3 steals on the season. Also had a double dong on Thursday, so that was back-to-back games with multiple homers for Mookie Betts. And let's talk about Bryce Miller, Scott, because I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of questions following this outing on Sunday. He has been destroyed. 2 starts in a row now. This one was at the Rangers. His previous start was home against the Yankees. He allowed 7 earned runs over 2 1/3 innings in this one, just 3 swinging strikes on 61 pitches. Actually didn't allow as much hard contact as I thought he did. I was watching this start, and it actually looked a lot worse while it was happening. So he's allowed 7+ runs in each of the past 2 starts. Has not shown the ability to really get much out of his secondary pitches at all, Scott. And if that fastball is not working, I think it had a 20 or 22% CSW in this start. If that pitch isn't working, then there's really not much working for Bryce Miller. I know that you and Chris were kind of ahead of this, and you were telling people to all right, search around, see if you could sell high on Bryce Miller. Now the question becomes, do we start Bryce Miller this week? Because he's at the Angels and obviously just had these 2 terrible starts. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I'd rather not.
Same.
About as the last 2 starts have been about as bad as it gets. Somebody was asking me, spoiler alert, Andrew Abbott's coming up for the Reds. We'll get into him soon. Somebody was asking me if you should drop Bryce Miller for Andrew Abbott. And I told him, no, I'm not going to give up on Bryce Miller after 1 start. Even though I did see him as a sell high, dropping is obviously a different standard. But then the second start happened for Miller, and he was like, what about now? And I kind of hedged then. I mean, in 2 starts, Bryce Miller's ERA has gone from 1.15 to 4.46. So, a rookie with a 4.46 ERA and not a great strikeout rate. He hasn't had more than a strikeout per inning since that debut, by the way, in any of his starts. That never seems beyond dropping to me. Rookie with a 4.46 ERA and less than a strikeout per inning, as I said. That's I don't know that you have to cling to that. So to me, it goes even beyond just, do we start him now, is when do we think about dropping him?
Mm-hmm.
And I think in leagues of 12 teams or fewer, we're already there.
I was going to make that distinction. I think in shallower leagues, maybe you can dabble with it. It depends who's out there. Someone asked me earlier tonight, who would you rather have rest of season, Bobby Miller or Bryce Miller? And it's, I know it's a much smaller sample size for Bobby Miller, but man, how he's pitched so far, 1 earned run in each of his first 3 starts and just looking dominant, throwing 100 miles per hour at his fastball. It's like, yeah, how could you not say Bobby Miller at this point over Bryce Miller? So I don't think Bobby Miller is out there in many leagues, if any, at this point, but that's an example of a move that I would make. Andrew Abbott, that's closer. We'll talk about him in just a little bit. I don't think I would make that one yet, but I would try and bench Bryce Miller for now. He's at the Angels this week. They're 9th in WOBA against right-handed pitching, so obviously they are pretty good against righties. And just a reminder that those first 5 starts that Bryce Miller made, the matchups, A's, Astros with no Altuve, Tigers, Braves, and the A's. So, 4 of those were really good matchups, and then the Braves was his worst start at the time. It was like 3 earned runs over 6 innings. So, we're getting closer to that point. Let's see what happens moving forward here with Bryce Miller. The big pitching news from the weekend, Scotty. We'll start with the injuries. Chris Sale placed on the IL with left shoulder inflammation. Alex Cora expressed hope that it's only a minor issue. Scott, did you see any timetables here on Chris Sale or any kind of speculation?
They didn't. I didn't even see any from the different scans he was having done. I didn't see any definitive results from that. Just that they're hoping it's not a long-term issue. So I'm hoping it's not a long-term issue either, but I don't really know.
Yeah, rough one there for Chris Sale. This one came out of nowhere during Sunday Night Baseball. Nestor Cortez is likely to be placed on the IL with a shoulder injury, which, again, we didn't really have any indication. He threw over 100 pitches in his last outing. The hope is that he'll only miss 2 starts. That came according to the Yankees. Justin Steele was also diagnosed with a mild left forearm strain, was placed on the IL Saturday. Hayden Wesneski is likely to join the rotation. We know Wesneski had some upside coming into the season, but looked really bad early on, got sent down. His 2 starts in the minors were actually good. So I think in deeper leagues, you could take a look at Wesneski, but 12 teamers or anything shallower, probably not yet.
It's not just the time in the minors. So his last 7 appearances in the majors, 6 of them starts, a 3.65 ERA, and even 1 WHIP. Not a great strikeout rate. And I should point out one of those appearances was really ugly. The others were good, though, at least in terms of run prevention and limiting base runners. So I have renewed interest in Wesneski, and he has 2 starts coming up this week. I don't have him as a recommended pitcher in this 2-start week, but I could understand people wanting to take another shot at him. I dropped Soroka for him, I'll tell you that much.
Mm-hmm. It's worth mentioning that in Wesneski's recent relief appearance, he actually came into the game that Justin Steele left earlier in the week. He threw his sweeper slider 39% of the time, which was his second highest usage of the season. So I think using that pitch more might be a recipe for success for Wesneski. Eduardo Rodriguez could miss 6 to 8 weeks with that left finger injury, so not looking good there. There's a Tigers pitcher that got called up this weekend that we'll talk about a little bit later on as well. But the big news, Scott, Hunter Green won't make his next start until next Sunday while he deals with hip stiffness. But I don't know if this is directly as a result of that. But Reds' top pitching prospect Andrew Abbott will make his major league debut on Monday. And according to Charlie Goldsmith of the Cincinnati Enquirer, this isn't just a spot start. It appears to be a long-term move for Andrew Abbott. And in the minors this season, 10 starts between AA and AAA, a 2.5 ERA, a .93 WHIP, 90 strikeouts, 90 over 54 innings pitched. This guy's strikeout rate has been ridiculous. Was reading some scouting reports, Scott. It's a low 90s fastball, but it's deceptive. He's got a great curveball. He added a sweeper last year too. So I'm a little torn because I love the numbers in the minors, but when I hear low 90s fastball and deceptive, and obviously his team context is not great, I'm like, all right. What are your thoughts on Andrew Abbott, and how aggressive are you in adding him tonight, this weekend?
I'm a little skeptical too. I mean, 15K per 9, it's very exciting. I'll give you another number, Frank. Since moving up to AAA, 1.9 home runs per 9. For Andrew Abbott. So you're talking about a guy who, okay, the strikeouts are great, but it's not, he doesn't dominate in a traditional way, relies a lot on deception, and then is giving up that much hard contact to minor league hitters that, exactly what that number is, because you may not know how long he spent at AAA. 8 home runs in 38 1/3 innings at AAA. Although, and he's going to the team who plays in the most homer-friendly park in all of baseball on top of it. So I have interest in Andrew Abbott, don't get me wrong, but if you're wondering why I'm hedging on dropping Bryce Miller for him, for instance, it's because I don't think he's a sure thing. My understanding is he does kind of have a Joe Ryan thing going on with the fastball, where optimal vertical approach angle, hitters swing under it. Like, it's, even though the velocity isn't there, it is legitimately a good pitch. But if he's going to be that vulnerable to the long ball, then we may be talking about an ERA over 4 regardless.
Again, that is Andrew Abbott getting called up to make his debut on Monday. We'll compare him to other waiver wire pitchers as we move on here. But there was another prospect called up this weekend as well, Scott. Marco Gonzalez placed on the IL with a left forearm strain, and pitching prospect Brian Wu promoted on Saturday. He made his debut at the Rangers. It's probably the worst place you can make your debut right now, the way that offense is swinging the bat. He gave up 6 earned runs over 2 innings pitched, 6 swinging strikes on 47 pitches, and looked like it was mostly a 3-pitch mix, a 4-seam fastball, a sinker, and a slider. He averaged 96.3 miles per hour on the fastball. The numbers in the minors this season were also dominant for Wu. All in AA, by the way, too, worth mentioning. 9 starts in AA. So kind of an aggressive promotion here. They're dealing with quite a few injuries. 12% rostered. Your thoughts on Brian Wu and how he compares to someone like Andrew Abbott?
Well, it's a lot easier to pass him over when he has a debut like that, right? I mean, I'm more interested, even if they both had not appeared in a game yet. I would have been more interested in Abbott. But Wu in AA this year, 12.1 K per 9, and only a 0.89 whip because he throws a lot of strikes. And that was something he did here in his debut too. He got hit hard, but he threw 70% of his pitches for strikes. And in, for all those he threw 77. I'm sorry. He threw 70% of his pitches for strikes. Let's just leave it at that, which is really great. I mean, look, 2/3 strikes is a really good rate. So 70%, if you're doing that over the course of a full season, you're likely to lead the league. So I do think if you're going to take any silver lining from Brian Wu's debut, it's that. Also, his stuff played well enough that he was able to get some swings and misses. But he just got hit too hard for us to take him seriously at this point. No clue how long he'll stick around, even if he's going to do this. We'll see how his second start goes. If it's dramatically improved, maybe we can think about adding him at that point. But as of now, I'm going to say no to Brian Wu.
Again, Brian Wu, one of the top pitching prospects in the Mariners organization. Just going back to Abbott real quick, I picked him up in my Tout Wars League. It's 12-team head-to-head points league with roto-size lineups, so it goes a little bit deeper than a standard points league. And I spent $182 out of a $1,000 budget, so 18%. About the backup bid was 161, so basically needed to go that high in order to get him. But when I revealed that amount to you, Scott, before we started, you kind of made a noise like, ugh.
Well,
I guess that's too high. That's much.
I mean, you expressed skepticism in him too, and you were willing to place the bids. So, yeah, I think most people don't use a fab budget at all, but I think $100 is more common than $1,000. So, obviously that comes out to like almost 20% of your budget for the year on a pitcher who has exciting, at least judging by the strikeout rate, has exciting potential. But is he truly, is he like, it's not Yuri Perez, right? It's not somebody who expect to for sure come in and just be an ace for years to come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he's more questionable than that, and we'll see how it goes. But it's more than I would have spent for him, yes.
Darn. All right. Well, we'll see what happens with Andrew Abbott.
Well, for what it's worth, he was already rostered in my Tout Wars League. 15 teams versus 12.
Yeah.
I didn't even have a chance to put in a bid on him. So, also, I don't have that much money to spend in my leagues anymore. So that's part of it too. I did already have Andrew Abbott stashed away in an NL only league, so I will enjoy him there.
I have a big bid in NL Labor as well. So I mean, Scott, if I read you my pitching staff in that league right now, I lost Woodruff, I lost Lodolo, I lost Ross Stripling. Not that those last two were pitching pretty bad anyway. I think my team's overall ERA is over 6. I have never seen an ERA this high on a fantasy baseball team, and it's going bad. So I'm really hoping to get myself some Andrew Abbott in NL Labor. We'll see what happens there. The last injury I wanted to mention here, Alex Wood went on the IL with a back strain, and immediately I started speculating about their top pitching prospect, Kyle Harrison, but it sounds like it's just going to be a short stint here for Alex Wood. And Harrison, as great as he has pitched in the minors this year, the whip is high, gets a lot of strikeouts. He hasn't gone more than 4 innings pitched in any of his 12 starts. So kind of feels like the Giants are slow rolling him. He's 21 years old at AAA. Maybe he makes an impact at some point this season, but probably not right now.
Sounds right to me.
All right, let's take our first break. And when we return, we'll get into all the waiver wire moves, the pitchers, the hitters. We'll do all of that here on Fantasy Baseball Today.
The Portland Thorns fly east for their battle with Orlando Pride. Sunday on CBS Sports Network.
Welcome back, and a quick reminder to sign up for our Fantasy Baseball Today newsletter. If you haven't already, just head on over to cbssports.com/newsletters. You click on the FBT logo, you punch in your email. It's as easy as that. It's free. You basically get a lot of the things that are on the rundown for the podcast sent to your inbox every day, the news, the latest articles. Again, cbssports.com/newsletters, or if you're watching us live, you can scan that QR code in the top right corner. That will take you right to the website. Let's get into the waiver wire pitchers from the weekend, Scotty, and we'll start with the pitchers in shallower leagues that could be available. Edward Cabrera reminded everybody of his upside on Friday up against the Oakland A's. 6 shutout innings with 10 strikeouts, 18 swinging strikes on 95 pitches. He has allowed 1 walk or fewer in 4 of his last 6 starts. The problem is that the other 2 starts, he allowed 4 walks in. So still kind of up and down there for Cabrera. Jack Flaherty turned in a solid start at the Pirates, 5 1/3, 1 run, allowed 6 strikeouts for him. And over his last 4 starts has a 1.88 ERA, a 1.17 whip. Logan T. Allen, another quality start at the Twins, 6 innings, 2 runs, 4 strikeouts there. Domingo Germán had a great start on Sunday Night Baseball at the Dodgers, 6 2/3, 1 run, 6 strikeouts with 12 swinging strikes. And Yusei Kikuchi got a ton of whiffs at the Mets on Sunday, 5 innings, 2 runs, 8 strikeouts with 19 swinging strikes. Scott, all of these names are rostered in 70% or more. So again, we're talking shallower formats here, but who are your, let's go 3 favorites? Kikuchi, Germán, Logan Allen, Jack Flaherty, Edward Cabrera.
Well, Allen's easily number 1. And I have him as one of my 10 sleeper pitchers for this week, even going against Houston, which again, hasn't been that bad of a matchup so far this year. That could change. Still think their offense has a lot of potential, of course. But I wouldn't be afraid to use Logan Allen against them. And I like the way he's trending in general. Edward Cabrera, I'm going to call him number 2. Obviously, you can never be sure from one start to the next if he has his control right. But when it is right, he can be really dominant. We saw it in this start against Oakland, next start against Kansas City. I have him as one of my sleeper pitchers as well for this upcoming scoring period. And it does at least seem like he's making some progress in terms of the strike throwing. The fact that 1 walk or fewer in 4 of his last 6 starts. Interestingly, only a 4.35 ERA during that 6 start span with 1 walk or fewer 4 times. But 116 whip, 11.6 K per 9. There's a lot to like there from Cabrera. Third, I'm going to say Domingo Germán, but
Question mark?
I mean, so his second start back from the foreign substance suspension, he looked great here against the Dodgers. The first start was a little, I don't know. How's he gonna do without the sticky stuff? But then the second start, he looks like he's looked all year. But I don't know. I don't know how long you can count on having Domingo Germán. Let's just put it that way. But he's been good for the year now. 3.69 ERA, 0.95 whip, great swinging strike rate. And I don't know that I'd start him against Boston this upcoming week. But I think of these pitchers, I prefer Domingo Germán to Jack Flaherty and Yusei Kikuchi rest of season.
Would you drop Bryce Miller for any of these?
I would drop him for Allen, and that's it.
Okay. And would you rank Andrew Abbott among that group?
I would rank Abbott second after Allen.
Okay.
So I guess if we're putting Bryce Miller in there too, I'll go Allen. And then Bryce Miller just barely edges out Abbott.
Okay. Let's get into waiver wire pitchers part 2 in slightly deeper leagues. Aaron Savali had a successful return at the Twins. He went 5 shutout with 4 strikeouts in that one. JP France, another strong start up against the Angels. 7 innings, 1 run, 3 strikeouts. Peek under the hood, though. Only 7 swinging strikes. He allowed some hard contact. I don't know that I'm buying it. He's at Cleveland this week, so that's the good news for JP France. Mike Clevinger, a good return up against the Tigers on Friday. 5 shutout innings with 6 strikeouts, 15 swinging strikes on 73 pitches. That is a great mark. And Dean Kramer has allowed 3 earned runs or fewer in 6 straight starts. He was at the Giants this weekend. 6 innings, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts with 12 swinging strikes. And his velocity is up this year. His fastball is up 1.4 miles per hour compared to last year, averaging nearly 95 miles per hour on the pitch. Scott, how do you rank that group? Dean Kramer, Mike Clevenger, JP France, and Aaron Savali.
Oh, gosh. It's not a good group. I don't like this group nearly as much as the last one. So I don't know that I'd be dying to roster any of them. And I don't really have a strong preference. So I will say Kramer, Clevenger, France, Savali.
Okay. And again, if you're looking for streamers this week, France at Cleveland, that's a good matchup. And Kramer is at the Brewers, which is Kramer, 45% rostered at the Brewers this week. Waiver wire pitchers part 3. Let's see if Scott likes any of these. Probably not. Michael Lorenzen had a strong start at the White Sox. 7 innings, 1 run, 6 strikeouts for him. He's got the ERA down to 3.21 with a .99 whip. Ranger Suarez, a strong start at the Nationals. 7 innings, 1 run, 3 strikeouts there. Griffin Canning has turned in 3 straight quality starts at the Astros this weekend. 6 innings, 1 run, 4 strikeouts. And Matthew Boyd put up a season-high 9 strikeouts at the White Sox. He allowed 1 run over 5 innings pitched. Overall numbers are still pretty rough for Matthew Boyd. What do you think, Scott? You like anyone from this group?
I do like this group by and large better than the last one, yeah.
Okay.
I think the one I'd most likely roster is Griffin Canning, who got a ton of whiffs in his previous start. Not as many in this one, but he's had 3 good starts in a row now, and I've always liked his secondary arsenal. The slider's been a great pitch for him from the beginning, and he's had more success with the changeup now. So 3 straight quality starts, 18 strikeouts in 19 innings during that stretch, almost a strikeout per inning. There may be something there. I was putting in some bids for Canning in those 15-team leagues. I also am not totally opposed to picking up Lorenzen. I know the ERA estimators say he's overachieving, and he probably is. But anytime you have a stretch like he's had, where, let's see, how many starts is it now? Michael Lorenzen in his last 6 starts has a 1.83 ERA. 5 of those 6 starts, he's gone 6 innings or more with 1 earned run allowed or fewer. And he's not giving up many hits either. His control has been tremendous during this stretch. So he's probably overachieving. I'm not going to put too much stock in him if I do pick him up. But it's just kind of like, it's gone on long enough that I don't want to overthink it, you know? Like, just kind of enjoy it for however long it lasts. If you have the space for it. It's not a huge priority. Obviously, it's not on the level of like an Andrew Abbott or anything, but we're talking tier 3 here of the waiver wire pitchers. Again,
that's Michael Lorenzen. The one downside for him is that he's facing the Diamondbacks this week, and they've been great against right-handed pitching, 7th in WOBA there. So between him and Canning, if you need a streamer again, Canning is up against Seattle, which is a much better matchup. Are we okay dropping these names, Scott? Patrick Sandoval, he had another rough outing Saturday. He's now up to a 4.14 ERA, 1.4 whip, and well below a strikeout per inning. He's still 70% rostered. And Anthony DeSclafani has a 6.12 ERA over his last 6 starts and still 82% rostered. What do you think about dropping those 2 names?
Anthony DeSclafani, another one a few weeks ago I was talking about as a sell high. Hope you listen to these. Yeah, I myself have dropped Sandoval already in a 12-team points league, and I would be willing to do the same for DeSclafani. You know, not necessarily for that Griffin Canning, Michael Lorenzen group, but you know, I drop either of them for Andrew Abbott, for instance, or Logan Allen. Somebody more exciting like that.
Sure. All right. Well, in deeper leagues, I've got 3 names here, Scotty. Tigers pitching prospect Reese Olson. This is who I was referring to earlier. He had a solid debut at the White Sox on Friday. 5 innings, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts to 1 walk. He had 12 swinging strikes on 89 pitches. 6 of those on the slider, 6 on the changeup. Mostly a 4-pitch mix. He threw his slider 34% of the time. That was his most used pitch. And we're talking big spin rates here, Scott. He averaged 2,946 RPM on that slider for Reese Olson in this matchup. So I was pretty interested in that. And he averaged 96 miles per hour on his fastball. The numbers in the minors are pretty bad. He gets lots of strikeouts, but the ERA and WHIP is not good. I don't know. I was kind of interested by what I saw here in this debut for Reese Olson. Start on him first before I get to the other names. What do you think about Reese?
I kind of wish I don't know. He didn't come to mind when I was putting in my waiver claims in those deeper leagues, because you're right. I do think he's very interesting. And you mentioned the overall minor league numbers, which aren't good. But his last 2 starts at AAA Toledo, he allowed a combined 1 run in 5 innings. He allowed a combined 1 run in 10 innings. He had 19 strikeouts in those 10 innings to just 2 walks. Only 5 hits allowed in those 10 innings. So I don't know what changed for him from start 8 at AAA to starts 9 and 10. But he looked dominant, genuinely. 18% swinging strike rate in those 2 starts. And as you mentioned, there's some good metrics on the individual pitch attributes look really strong for Reese Olson of the Tigers. So that's somebody you might want to look into too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially in those 15-team leagues or deeper. The name there, Reese Olson. The other 2 are oldies, but kind of goodies. Rich Hill, strong start up against the Cardinals, 6 2/3, 1 run, 6 strikeouts. And Adrian Hauser, another great start at the Reds, 7 innings, 1 run, only 2 strikeouts for him. He's got a 3.45 ERA. Rich Hill, 4.41. Deeper league stuff here, Scott. Any interest there?
Not really. No, I mean, I could see Hauser. He's a good enough ground ball pitcher that I could see him being useful in a deep league context, but I don't have a lot of faith in him.
Okay. I don't think either of these 2 things matter, but I'm going to bring them up rather quickly. Jordan Lyles had an interesting start up against the Rockies. 5 innings, 1 run, 8 strikeouts with 14 swinging strikes, and his velocity was up across the board. The fastball was up nearly 2 miles per hour. The sweeper was up 1.3 miles per hour. He still has a 6.89 ERA. And Michael Grove, his velocity was up in his first start off the IL up against the Yankees. He allowed 4 runs over 5 innings pitched, did have 7 strikeouts on 13 swinging strikes. His fastball was up 2 miles per hour. I think he averaged 96 miles per hour on that fastball in the start. I don't think it matters, Scott, but anything here? Jordan Lyles, Michael Grove?
Yeah, I don't think it does either. I worried at one point that Michael Grove's return might keep Bobby Miller's stay short once Julio Urias came off the IL, but after 3 straight terrific starts from Bobby Miller, I don't think that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. All right, fair enough. Let's get into the waiver wire hitters, Scott. And for the last time, I assume this number is going to go up quite a bit on Sunday night when we're recording this into Monday morning, when a lot of people have their waivers run. Matt McClain, 2 more multi-hit games this weekend. He's batting .342 early on. He's flashed a little bit of power. I think he has 1 steal as well. Great OBP. He's 68% rostered. I think that number needs to be closer to 100%. It doesn't matter. A points league, a categories league. I think Matt McClain is going to be a big contributor regardless. So the last time we'll tell you, go pick that guy up. Some outfielders, Scott, how do you feel about this group? Taylor Ward, kind of getting back on track. His last 6 games, he's got 10 hits, including 2 home runs. He is down to 71% rostered. Eddie Rosario had a massive weekend. He went 3 for 4 with a double dong on Friday. He added another multi-hit game Saturday, and then it went 1 for 5 with a go-ahead grand slam on Sunday. He's now batting .256 with 8 homers and a .755 OPS. Also a huge weekend for Jake Fraley. He had 2 homers and 4 steals this weekend. And Jesus Sanchez went 3 for 4 with an opposite field home run on Friday. And we know before he went on the IL, he was really heating up as well, Scott. He's batting .316 with a .961 OPS. How do you rank that group? Taylor Ward, Eddie Rosario, Jake Fraley, Jesus Sanchez.
I'll go Ward 1, Fraley 2. Where do I put Sanchez? Sanchez has always been a tough one for me. I guess I'll put him ahead of Rosario. So I'll go Sanchez 3, Rosario 4. Because it's kind of a crowded mix there for the Braves between left field and DH. And he tends not to play against righties. It is a good lineup, and His RBI total looks pretty decent now after this recent hot streak. So I'm not saying he's useless, but it's hard to imagine Eddie Rosario ever breaking into the 3 outfielder league threshold. Like he's useful enough as your 5th outfielder. Okay, you could use him. But is he ever going to be good enough for 3 outfielder league use? I don't see that. When I can see it for Ward, who, as you point out, is coming around. He's back to playing every day for the Angels. For a while there, he was losing playing time, but not anymore. He started, how many straight? He started 7 straight, I believe. 6 straight. So yeah, he's back to playing every day as Taylor Ward. And Jake Fraley, it doesn't play every day, and he's so bad against lefties that I don't imagine that's going to change. But if you can play the matchups with him, the power, the speed, the on-base skills, it's a good enough mix of abilities that I find him to be a pretty useful player. You just have to be careful when you choose to use him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's similar for all 3 of those last guys. As you pointed out, Scott, Rosario, Fraley, Sanchez. Sanchez sits against left-handed pitching as well. So, they're maximizing his output by playing him against righties. I get that. If you play in a daily lineup categories league, I think these are names that you could target and just play them whenever they're in the lineup against right-handed pitching. Because obviously, they don't play every day. So probably lose a little bit of value in weekly lineup leagues. These hitters have good matchups this week, but does it matter? I know that the Pirates have the 4th best hitter matchups. The Rockies have the 5th best. You can find those on the site in Scott's sleeper hitters for this upcoming week. Brian Hayes had 7 hits, including 2 homers this weekend. He's hitting the ball hard, as he always does, Scott. He's got a career high 40% fly ball rate, but it just doesn't translate into power because he doesn't pull the ball enough. He hits it up the middle. He hits it into the power alleys. And ultimately it's more like singles and doubles than it actually is like home run power for Brian Hayes. Ji-Hwan Bae went 2 for 4 with 2 steals on Sunday. He has multiple hits in 4 of his last 9 games. He has started 8 of the last 9 games for the Pirates. And Ezekiel Tovar, he picked up 4 hits and a stolen base this weekend. And over his last 18 games, he's batting .323 with 2 homers and 2 steals. Any interest, Scott, this week with the good matchups? Brian Hayes, Ji-Hwan Bae, and Ezekiel Tovar.
Well, I think Hayes would be the most attractive play of the 3 with the good matchups. His hot streak is very recent. And, it may be short-lived because they've all been short-lived up to this point in his career. I do get a lot of questions about Brian Hayes. People look at his StatCast page. They see all the red. They see him underperforming his expected stats and say, hey, isn't this somebody we should be getting excited about? I'm to the point with Brian Hayes where seeing is believing. And, a stretch of 6 games where he's hit well is not enough seeing for me. He's still batting .242 on the year. But he does have good matchups, and he is hot enough that I think if you're looking for third base help for this week, he'd be fine. I am intrigued by Ezekiel Tovar picking it up at the plate because, of course, I liked him a lot as a sleeper coming in, part because of where he plays his home games. But they are at home at this week, and he's been hitting better. Shortstop's a difficult position to fill. Certainly, if you have your choice between Ezekiel Tovar and Matt McLain, it's no contest. You go with McLain.
Yep.
I'm with you there. I'll also point out that McLain was striking out a lot early. It's cut way down on those recently, and it's continued to get the multi-hit games with or without the strikeouts. So definitely like the path McLain is on. But if you have to go deeper than that, I don't think Tovar is a bad choice for this week.
All right. And speaking of going into those deeper leagues, some names here, Scotty. Josh Donaldson went 2 for 4 with a double dong in his first game back on Friday. And then he went 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts on Saturday. Mitch Garver was activated on Saturday by the Rangers. Back-to-back games with multiple hits, including a home run on Saturday as well. He's utility only to start. He's got 4 games at catcher. So I think he's probably going to be the backup catcher and DH most days. So maybe, by next week, Mitch Garver will have catcher eligibility. Yuli Gurriel had 6 hits this weekend and is batting .291 on the year. He's got 3 homers and 3 steals. Will Brennan, over his last 6 games, I didn't write it in because I was supposed to do that, but he's getting a lot of hits right now. It's a little bit of power, a little bit of speed for Will Brennan as well. Jake Bauers, 2 for 3 with a double dong on Saturday. And a gentleman named Andrew Monasterio is getting an opportunity to play for the Brewers, given all of their injuries. He had 4 hits, a homer, and a steal this weekend, Scott. Anything you'd like to add on that group? Monasterio, Bauers, Brennan, Yuli Gurriel, Mitch Garver, and Josh Donaldson.
Yeah, and some of those 2-catcher leagues, I was putting in small bids on Mitch Garver. He's not eligible at catcher yet in most places, but he did make an appearance at catcher over the weekend. Didn't start there, but he moved there later in the game. And in most places, it only takes 5 appearances. So how many does that put him up to now? Can't be that far.
He has 4 already, yeah. So
okay, so yeah, 1 more appearance behind the plate, and at least in CBS and most other places, then you can play him at catcher. And if he's going to be their primary DH, then he'll be a great pickup in 2-catcher leagues for as long as he's healthy, which may not be very long, but the back end of the you go really deep at the catcher position in 2-catcher leagues, so you can't afford to be that choosy.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, let's take our final break, and when we return, we'll get some news, the leftovers, all that right after this.
Said I'm fired up. I'm sorry your time's up. I see the time came from the ashes, I rise up.
Welcome back, and a big shout out to everyone watching us live on YouTube right now. 629 people. We do appreciate all of you being here. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. The news from the weekend: Aaron Judge was not in the lineup Sunday due to a toe injury he suffered making a catch up against the wall in Dodger Stadium, and there is a chance that he'll have to go on the IL. Aaron Boone said they're kind of playing it day by day. They're going to see what happens over the next couple of days. Scott, what do we do in weekly leagues? Do we bench Aaron Judge?
I don't want to say yes.
I know it sucks. He's so hot right now too.
But that is the more prudent course of action. I think in head-to-head leagues, because obviously you bank your losses in head-to-head leagues, and so you can't afford to risk it as much. I'd be more likely to sit him there.
Manny Machado was reinstated from the IL on Friday. He went 1 for 11 in 3 games this weekend, picking up right where he left off. Royce Lewis took a nasty spill. Scott, did you see this collision at first base with Royce Lewis?
I didn't actually see that one. I saw the Judge one, but I didn't.
Go on Twitter right now and go watch it. Look, I don't mean to be laughing about it because it was nasty. It was scary. He flipped over the first baseman. He landed on his face. He scorpioned into the ground. It honestly could have been a lot worse. I thought he, severely hurt his neck or something. It was scary stuff. So I assume he's going to miss at least a couple of days. I hope it's not longer than that. But yeah, Royce Lewis, pretty nasty spill there at first base. Carlos Rodon was able to throw 30 pitches during a 2-up session on Friday and could face live hitters in the next few days. Apparently his fastball set 90 to 93 miles per hour, which does sound a bit scary, but I guess he's just building back up. Rodon averaged 95.6 miles per hour with his fastball last year. Obviously something to watch moving forward. I just saw your face, Scott, so you must have just watched that Royce Lewis collision.
Well, it looked like a very athletic flip over the first baseman at first, and if he had completed
you got to tuck your head, man.
Yeah, he didn't tuck the head. Yeah. So instead he landed on his face and his neck bent back, and that looked pretty rough, but it seems like he's okay other than a laceration on his face. So that's
right.
That's good. I mean, that's not of course you never want to see that for anybody, but a guy coming back from 2 torn ACLs, that's be particularly devastating.
Yeah, crazy stuff there for Royce Lewis. Brandon Woodruff continues to throw off flat ground and remains hopeful to return from the 60-day IL around the All-Star break. Recently, we heard late June, so it sounds like perhaps that timetable has been pushed back a little bit for Woodruff. Jose Altuve has missed 2 straight with an oblique injury. Scott, same question as Judge. What do we do?
I mean, I think the same thing.
Yeah.
It's not often that an oblique injury doesn't put a player on the IL. So it's a little surprising that they haven't put Altuve on the IL yet, but I would not feel confident starting him.
Julio Arias threw a bullpen on Saturday, and the next step in his rehab will be to face live hitters on Tuesday. Garrett Cole left his start after 80 pitches Saturday due to cramping. Doesn't sound like anything serious. Thairo Estrada is expected to return from the IL on Tuesday. He's been out with a sore left wrist. I assume we get Thairo Estrada back in there, Scotty?
Yeah.
All right. Byron Buxton has missed 3 straight with a bruised hip. Might want to bruised rib, rather, not a bruised hip. You might want to play it safe with him, but we'll see if he's in the lineup earlier this week. Willy Adames began a rehab assignment at High A on Sunday and could return from the IL this Thursday. Xander Bogaerts has missed 2 straight with that lingering wrist injury. Brandon Lau was scratched Sunday with a back injury, which is what ruined his season last year. So hope it doesn't continue to linger. Michael Conforto has sat out 4 straight with a bruise on his left heel. Tyler O'Neill was shut down for 10 more days on Friday. So I guess 8 more days now. He's been dealing with a lingering lower back injury. Wade Miley is scheduled to make a rehab start next Sunday at AA. He's been on the IL with an injury to his rib cage. Luis Arias is expected to rejoin the Brewers on Tuesday. He's 43% rostered and has second, third, and shortstop eligibility. Scott, any interest in Luis Arias?
You know, I've never been a Luis Arias guy.
Yeah, that's my guy. And for the
you
most
like
part,
Luis Rengifo.
It hasn't worked out very well for Luis Arias. Joey
I
Votto.
think they're similar. That's what I was getting at.
Joey Votto began a rehab assignment at AAA on Saturday, which, again, as we've pointed out multiple times, it hurts Christian Encarnacion Strand's chances of getting called up. The Cardinals promoted this kid, Lucan Baker, on Sunday, who was smashing at AAA. He was hitting .313 with 18 home runs in 54 games. He does have some pop, but just a career .257 hitter in the minors. Scott, is there anything here with Lucan Baker?
Well, that may be his career batting average in the minors, but this year he was hitting .313. He was getting on base at a .434 clip. He was hitting for as much power as anybody in all the minors. I'm always attracted to this profile because it is the path for a right-handed hitting plotting first base, like a guy who can only play first base. He has a narrow path defensively, and he's only a right-handed hitter. The path for them getting to the majors is really difficult. That's why it didn't really happen for Christian Walker till he was almost 30, despite him putting up great numbers in the minors. Could Lucan Baker have a career like that? Potentially, but I don't know that he's in a position to play all that regularly for the Cardinals either. So most likely he's just a quadruple A guy, short side of a platoon, but definitely keep an eye on him.
It reminds me of another former Cardinal in Luke Voigt, right? Just kind of called up later on in his career. And, for a while there, he was mashing as well. So we'll see what happens with Lucan Baker. Players that went on the IL this weekend: Lars Nootbaar with a lower back contusion, Joey Gallo with a strained hamstring, Alex Faedo with a right middle finger injury, TJ Friedel with a strained left hamstring, Tyrone Taylor with a right elbow sprain, Darren Ruff with a right knee laceration, Josh Fleming with left elbow soreness, and Nelson Cruz with a right hamstring strain. Some prospect notes: Mets shortstop prospect Ronnie Mauricio has been learning left field down in the minors, and maybe that's something that can help him get called up sooner rather than later. Pirates catcher prospect Henry Davis has been promoted to AAA. So both him and Andy Rodriguez are there. It's kind of interesting to me that they haven't called up either of those guys at this point in the season, but it's the Pirates. The Dodgers.
Rodriguez has been, he's been pretty disappointing because he put up insane numbers in the second half last year, like hit almost 400. And this year at AAA Indianapolis, he hasn't been completely healthy the whole time, but 247 with the 737 OPS is Andy Rodriguez. And I would say probably in terms of dynasty interest, Henry Davis has leapfrogged him again.
And the last one here, the Dodgers called up outfield prospect Johnny DeLuca with Trace Thompson going on the IL. DeLuca was hitting .292 with 14 homers and 12 steals, a .952 OPS in 49 games between AA and AAA. He's 24 years old. Scott, anything here on Johnny DeLuca?
I just wrote about him in the latest prospects report.
Nice.
Obviously didn't realize he was about to get called up, but his destiny is probably as a weak side platoon player. But he's capable of playing center field, power, speed. Remember Paul LaDuca?
Yeah.
And now there's Johnny DeLuca. It all comes full circle.
Sure does. Let's get into the leftovers here, Scotty. What do we do with these two pitchers? Do we start them this week? Kodai Senga, we got the full experience this week. Career start in his first start. And then on Sunday, 3 earned runs over 2 2/3 innings, 5 walks to 3 strikeouts. He has given up 4+ walks in 6 of 11 starts this season. Do we start at the Pirates this week?
I mean, it's not a firm no, but it's not something I'm dying to do.
Mm-hmm. Sandy Alcantara, Scott, this was supposed to be the start to get him back on track, going up against the Oakland A's. Gave up 5 runs over 7 innings pitched. It might sound a little ridiculous that I'm asking whether or not we start or sit. Some people tweeted me asking, like, what do I do with Sandy Alcantara?
They probably did that in the 3rd inning when he gave up all 5 of those runs.
Right.
And then he pitched 4 shutout innings after that. So I think that kind of curbed some of the panic that was setting in.
Yeah.
Of the 6 hits Sandy Alcantara allowed in this start, 5 of them were singles. 1 of them was a double. So it seemed like he just kind of had things snowball on him in that 3rd inning. And overall, he pitched really well. Average exit velocity against him was about 85 miles per hour. So he wasn't allowing hard contact. He was getting plenty of whiffs.
He didn't walk anybody. That's what we wanted, right? No walks. He didn't walk anybody.
Yeah. I'm still fully on board with Alcantara.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say the same. Yeah, the underlying numbers kind of looked really good there for Sandy in this one. Pitching standouts, part 1. We had a pitcher's duel between Chris Bassett and Justin Verlander this weekend. Bassett at the Mets, revenge game, 7 2/3 shutout with 8 strikeouts for him. Verlander on the other side, 6 innings, 1 run, 8 strikeouts, only had 9 swinging strikes. John Gray has allowed 1 earned run or fewer in 5 straight. He's also gone 7+ innings in 4 of those starts. He went 7 shutout with 5 strikeouts up against I didn't write it down, but I think it was the Mariners. That's who they played this weekend. Framber Valdez continues his breakout season, 7 shutout with 7 strikeouts up against the Angels. Anything on this group, Scott? Valdez, John Gray, Verlander, Bassett.
I'm pretty concerned about Verlander at this point. He has an 8.7% swinging strike rate, which is pretty awful. And it was even though he won the Cy Young, it was a significant decline even then from his pre-Tommy John self. And now there's been an even bigger drop. He looks kind of like he's 40, like he's a shell of his former self. And he's still effective enough to use in fantasy. It's not like his value's totally bottomed out here, but I'm quickly losing faith in him being anything close to an ace. Now, I wouldn't put him past him. I wouldn't put it past him. Obviously, he's had a very storied career and has overcome difficulties in the past. He's overcome full seasons that were not very good. But I'll tell you this much: his trade value is not holding. I was trying to trade him earlier today, and the offers were not good. I decided not to trade him.
Again, that is Justin Verlander. Pitching standouts, part 2. Merrill Kelly has continued his fine season with a strong start up against the Braves. 7 innings, 2 runs, 8 strikeouts in that one. Clayton Kershaw with a great bounce-back start. Has been scuffling a little bit recently. Up against the Yankees, 7 innings, 2 runs, 9 strikeouts for him. Dylan Cease, solid start. 5 1/3, 1 run, 6 strikeouts. What I wanted to point out, 23 swinging strikes on 99 pitches. That is great stuff for Dylan Cease. Jose Barrios continues his bounce-back season at the Mets. 6 innings, 1 run, 6 strikeouts in that one. The ERA down to 3.66 for Jose Barrios. Anything on this group, Scotty? Barrios, Cease, Kershaw, Merrill Kelly.
Yeah, the swinging strikes for Cease stood out to me too. 23. His previous high this season was only 14. And as I've pointed out the last few times we've talked about Dylan Cease, as many guys as he's going to walk, he needs to be an elite top tier bat misser. So this was the first start where he looked like that. We'll need to see more, obviously, to conclude that Dylan Cease is back, but it was a step in the right direction. And I also want to point out for Jose Barrios that any concerns you may have had about him at one point in time should be pretty much done at this point. His last 10 starts, so basically the first 2 starts of the year were bad, but last 10, 2.48 ERA, 115 WHIP, 8.2 K per 9.
Yep.
You know, that pretty much looks like prime Jose Barrios, and you know, the hard contact that he was dealing with last year is gone as well. 81.9 was the average exit velocity in this start. He looks fine.
Yep. Pitching standouts, part 3. Garrett Cole, solid start at the Dodgers. 6 innings, 1 run, 5 strikeouts, only 9 swinging strikes on 80 pitches. He is down to a 10.7% swinging strike rate, his lowest since 2017 when he was still on the Pittsburgh Pirates. Alex Cobb had a great start up against the Orioles. Revenge game. 7 2/3 shutout with 7 strikeouts, 16 swinging strikes on 103 pitches. And Yu Darvish had a dominant start up against the Cubs. 7 shutout, 9 strikeouts, 11 swinging strikes there. Anything on this group? Darvish, Cobb, Garrett Cole.
I mean, I would still consider Alex Cobb a sell high. There's not much to complain about in this particular start. Everything looked good. His, getting 14 whiffs on the splitter is always a good thing for him, but he is still well overperforming his expected stats and has a pathetic swinging strike rate overall.
Mm-hmm. And pitching standouts, part 4. The last group here, Michael Kopech, another strong start up against the Tigers. 7 innings, 2 runs, 9 strikeouts with 11 swinging strikes. He has given up just 4 walks in his last 4 starts total, and he has 9+ strikeouts in each of those. The matchups have been very kind, though. The Royals, Guardians, Angels, and Tigers during that span for Michael Kopech. Nathan Eovaldi, another stellar outing, 6 shutout, only 1 hit allowed, 7 strikeouts, 0 walks. And Bobby Miller has allowed 1 earned run or fewer in all 3 starts. He goes 6 shutout with 7 strikeouts up against the Yankees. And I assume we are starting him with confidence at the Phillies this week.
Yeah, I would say so. He has still been giving up hard contact, which makes me a little nervous, but he's unique for a young pitcher who throws 100 miles per hour in that he doesn't lean that heavily on the fastball. He makes extensive use of his secondary pitches, and so I think that helps to mitigate the damage on the contact. And I don't think there's any reason not to trust Bobby Miller at this point.
All right, some quick hitting leftovers. Jordan Walker went 1 for 5 with a strikeout in his return Friday. Did have 2 batted balls over 108 miles per hour. Ryan McMahon is on fire over his last 11 games. He's batting .442 with 5 homers and a 93.7 mile per hour average exit velocity. He's 92% rostered, which actually surprised me for Ryan McMahon. Giancarlo Stanton returned with a solo home run on Friday. Marcus Semien on Saturday, 4 for 6 with 2 doubles and a home run. He had 5 hard hit balls in that game. Corey Seager has multiple hits in 5 of his last 6 games, 2 homers during that time as well. And this is exactly what we thought Corey Seager would be, right? If he just didn't have that month of a hamstring injury. He's batting .349 with a 1028 OPS. He's been amazing. JT Realmuto, back-to-back games with a homer. He's now batting .258 with 5 home runs and 7 steals. Alex Bregman went 1 for 1 with 4 walks and a grand slam on Saturday, joining just JD Martinez and Bobby Bonds. 3 players to accomplish that feat since 1974. Luis Arraez went 5 for 5 with 3 doubles and 5 RBI on Saturday. He's batting .390, but with just 1 homer and 1 steal. It's such an odd profile, but he's a productive player in his own way. It's interesting. Fernando Tatis, 2 for 5 with a double dong on Saturday. Ronald Acuna, 2 for 5 with a sock and a shoe on Saturday. His 12th homer and his 24th steal. I think he stole another base on Sunday. He's up to 25 now. It's just crazy. Kyle Schwarber, 2 for 5 with a double dong on Sunday. He's now up to 15 home runs, but is batting just .172. Jonathan India had a big weekend, a sock and a shoe on Friday. then added 2 more steals on Saturday. Nick Castellanos had 7 hits this weekend, including a double dong on Friday. And I wrote down Corey Seager's name twice on this list because, frankly, that's just how good he's been. Let's get into the bullpen updates here, Scott. If there's anywhere where you just want to hop in, feel free to do so. For the Nationals on Friday, Hunter Harvey entered in the 7th inning with runners on first and third. With a 3-run lead, he allowed 2 of those runners to score. And then Kyle Finnegan entered in the 8th. He had runners on first and second with a 1-run lead. He allowed 1 run to score, but eventually would pick up the win. I don't know if there's any rhyme or reason, but just kind of feels like they're mixing and matching with Hunter Harvey and Kyle Finnegan at this point. For the Rangers, Will Smith picked up his 10th save on Friday. He's up to 71% rostered. And if you just need a relief pitcher or saves, probably should be closer to 100% at this point for Will Smith. For the Rockies on Friday, Daniel Bard started the 9th inning up 7-2. He got the first 2 outs, and then he gave up a walk, a hit, and another walk. Justin Lawrence got the final out for his first save. And then on Saturday, Lawrence recorded the final 4 outs. He did give up a run, but he picked up his second save in as many days. He is just 5% rostered. And, Scott, we speculated on Justin Lawrence recently, and I think they're probably going that route.
Yeah, it's pretty murky still because both of the saves he got over the weekend were unconventional. And then the second of them, he looked pretty shaky himself. What would have happened if Daniel Bard got through that 9th inning cleanly on Friday? Up 5 at the time. I get it, but yeah, it's not clear exactly what they want to do. In leagues so deep that it's worth picking up Lawrence, I would still be reluctant to drop Pierce Johnson just because it's still pretty messy to me.
For the Cubs on Friday, Adbert Alzolay entered in the 8th inning with runners on first and second and just a 1-run lead. He got Bogarts to hit into a double play and then struck out Tatis. Mark Leiter Jr. pitched the 9th inning and picked up his 3rd save of the season. For the Diamondbacks on Friday, Miguel Castro got the 9th inning with a 1-run lead. He allowed 2 hits but did escape with his 6th save. And on Sunday, Andrew Chafin pitched in the 7th with a 2-run lead. He gave up 1 run. Miguel Castro got the 9th. A 1-run lead at that point, and he gave up a grand slam to Eddie Rosario. It kind of feels like they were trending more towards Castro, Scott, as the closer for the Diamondbacks, but maybe after this, grand slam.
Yeah. He almost got out of it for with no runs. There was 2 outs in the 9th when Rosario hit that grand slam, but he didn't. So we'll see what happens next.
For the Phillies on Saturday, Craig Kimbrell pitched a clean 9th inning for his 8th save. For the Yankees on Saturday, Michael King entered in the 7th with a 2-run lead. He recorded the next 6 outs. Clay Holmes got the 9th, walked 1, but did pick up his 6th save. And I wrote that he has the Yankees' last 2 saves, but that would be lying because then on Sunday Night Baseball, Wandy Peralta got another save. Clay Holmes pitched in the 8th. Peralta picked up the final 4 outs, and he picked up his 4th save of the season. I don't know if there's much rhyme or reason with the Yankees either, Scott. It feels like one of King, Holmes, or Wandy Peralta is the best bet for saves for them right now.
Yeah, I think I just dropped Peralta and a couple 15-teamers.
Yeah. And on Sunday, Dylan Floro struck out 2 for his 6th save, but it sounds like AJ Puck will be back shortly. To stream or not to stream, let's start with Monday, and I like Brian Bayo, the pitcher, but he's going up against Tampa Bay, so I don't know that I love that. Braxton Garrett up against the Royals. That sounds good to me.
That's probably the best one. Yeah.
Andrew Abbott in his debut, Scott, do you do it up against the Brewers?
I mean, no, but I hardly ever stream pitchers like this to begin with.
JP Sears at the Pirates. I kind of like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Braxton Garrett versus Kansas City and JP Sears at Pittsburgh are the best ones. If you're feeling really crazy, Mike Myers at Miami. He might have an opener pitch before him, but he's looked good in that role for the Royals so far. And
then on Tuesday, we have Louis Varland at Tampa Bay. It's a tough matchup, but he's pitching very well right now. Zach Greinke has pitched very well recently. He's at the Marlins. I think that's fine.
I prefer Tommy Henry at Washington.
That one's good too. I know the Nationals are good against lefties, but yeah, Henry has, mostly pitched well. Anyone else here? think Clark Schmidt against the White Sox is okay. Liberator, I'm kind of interested in the pitcher, but at the Rangers, I don't think I want to get involved there. Hayden Wesneski, let's see what he does, but I don't think I want to stream him either. So the names that we gave you, Louis Varland, Tommy Henry, and Zach Greinke on Tuesday. We're going to wrap there. For Scott, I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. We'll be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.